And we are live, Senators.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. This is the Vermont State Senate Committee on Institutions. I am your host for this afternoon's proceedings, Joe Benning, the chair of the committee. I represent the Caledonia Orange District. We also have with us at the moment Senator Mazza from Colchester Grand Isle, Senator McCormick from Windsor, Senator Parent from Franklin County. We will be joined shortly by Senator Ingalls from Essex Orleans, and at some point around the same time, we'll probably be losing Senator Mazza, but that's the way things go in the legislature. We are January 20th, 2022. The discussion is going to be a little broad area, talking about Buildings and General Services Property Management Fund and the governor's recommended budget adjustment. We have several players who were with us here yesterday. We welcome you back. Somehow or other, Representative Harrison actually got to be involved in this conversation today. So we're really looking forward to the brilliance that is offered from a House member. And we can't see you smiling, Jim, or sticking your tongue out at this point. So
he's here? Oh God, I wish you'd have told me earlier, man.
Yeah, well, it should be an interesting conversation. Just for the edification of those of you who have not testified with us before, I'm just going to remind you that we are on YouTube. Much to my surprise, I was told that we had 100 viewers last week on some of our discussions. So I am going to assume there are people out there in TV land who are actually watching these proceedings. Why, I haven't figured out yet, but we are in a situation that is public. And so as you testify, I would appreciate it if you would give us a little spiel about who you are, what you do, and how you fit into the picture of government. And in addition, as you are testifying, especially those of you who are experts in various subjects, if you happen to speak some words that you and I may both understand, but I red flag it in my brain as telling me that our listeners might not actually know what that means, I may interrupt your testimony and ask you to explain what A, B, or C happens to mean. With that, I understand, Commissioner Fitch, you are first on my list and you know the protocol. So welcome back to Senate Institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Jennifer Fitch. I am the Commissioner of Buildings and General Services. BGS serves all branches of government and all state agencies and departments. And basically we support state government through providing buildings, print and postal, surplus, information centers. We have a fleet program where we provide leased vehicles and other vehicles for a day lease or rent to state agencies and departments. And we also have centralized procurement. So we've got a little bit of everything here at BGS. And today I have been asked to come in and talk about our property management deficit proposal. And so we have $21 million right now in deficit in our property management program. That deficit is created by two buckets. One bucket, which we're not here to talk about today, but is important to the conversation, is the debt that we've accumulated because we basically purchased, but are mortgaging back 3 property management buildings. That included Holton Street, but we have since sold that property. And when we sold it, we lost $100,000 in the transaction. So that's part of the debt. And then we also have Asa Bloomer, and our third, which is in Rutland. And our third building is 108 Cherry, which is in Burlington. And so that's $11 million of the debt. We basically purchased the property, those 3 properties, over a 20-year period. We are now owners, and we've been owners for the last couple of years. And we have another 30 years to pay off the full debt of those buildings, of acquiring them, and like a mortgage payment, slowly paying it back over time. So that is $11 million. It has a revenue source because the building occupants that are in those buildings, they pay a rate every year, and part of that rate goes to pay for the mortgage. So we have revenue to pay off the $11 million as the result of the purchase of those buildings. The other side, which has no revenue source whatsoever, is $10 million, or approximately $10 million, that was accumulated between FY, I believe FY 12 through FY 17, but Jason can correct me if I've got the years wrong. And the reason why we accumulated that debt, that $10 million, is because we have a whole property management program, and that program has people that work in the program, right? So we're paying people salaries and benefits, and we're also paying for, typical office expenses, things like your space, copy machines, printing, different things like that, whatever a program needs to actually operate. When we got into FY 17, we ended up putting a surcharge onto our leases. So now, right, and that surcharge is used to pay for the property management program. So the operational cost to run that program, we now have a revenue source for moving forward. So we put that surcharge on, that surcharge comes back in, and that's what's used to pay for our program. So we have a revenue source for that. What we don't have a revenue source for, though, is that $10 million of debt that we accumulated over that time period because we didn't have any revenue coming in to pay for this program. And so I have been working very closely with finance and management over the last 5 years. And every time we meet, I say, hey, I'd like to propose that we find a way to pay down this $10 million of deficit, because the deficit hurts the state's credit rating. So when we go out to borrow in the spring, the more debt that we have, right, the lower our ability to borrow and the higher the interest rate. So when we have times like we do right now, where there is a surplus of money coming to the state and we have a surplus of money in our coffers, right, we want to be responsible and we want to pay off our debt, which in the end allows us to borrow more and reduces our interest payments, or that amount that we have to pay back, and improves our credit rating. So every year I go to finance and management, we have this conversation, and finally this year I went again. I'm a very persistent person, as you know, Mr. Chairman. I went back again and I said, we still got this $10 million of debt and I still don't have a way to pay it down. I have been trying to be very diligent in paying down whatever debt that we have and managing our funds, appropriately, right? So we're not going into debt in our programs. And so I've been super diligent. So was Commissioner Cole when he was here as well. And we're actually doing really, really well managing all of our funds, which is great. But I still don't have a revenue source for this $10 million. So this year, finally, finance and management said, you know what? This is the year. We've got some surplus in funding. We know we're going to go out to bond in the spring. And so it makes sense to pay down this $10 million of deficit now, which will then put the state in a better credit place for a better credit rating when they go out to borrow in the spring. And so that is a high level overview of the proposal to pay down that $10 million in debt that I have no revenue source for, and the why now in terms of why we're doing it now. We've got the money, makes sense to pay down our debt when we have the opportunity.
So you've given us a very good education. Can I ask you to elaborate a little bit about why that decrease in our debt is important to the capital bill overall?
So I am going to segue to Jason, who unfortunately it would be helpful to have finance and management here because they can speak well to this, and maybe Representative Harrison can also help because this is more of his area as well. But Jason, do you have a response to that?
Not, I wouldn't have that information, to be honest with you. So
we would have to call in finance and management.
Management would know better than I would.
Okay, this is a very high level conversation for the benefit of our viewers especially. And I'll just kick in then that the lower our debt load is, the easier it is for the state to borrow money. And the capital bill, which is the vehicle this committee deals with, is better off when our debt load is lower, because then we are able to bond in the future and get more things paid for. But if it goes in the opposite direction, our financial resources shrink. So we appreciate your staying on top of this question. It's an ongoing issue, and wish you the best of luck. So I see you brought Jason along with you, and I'm trusting that he has something in addition to tell us.
I usually bring Jason with me because there are oftentimes I get questions I cannot answer. And Jason's been with BGS he's been with us for a long time. And so he's got all the sort of institutional knowledge about what's happened and why over time. And so that's why I really like to have him tag along with me when I testify about anything related to BGS budgets. Jason, is there anything you'd like to elaborate on that I didn't provide an overview on?
No, I
Just a
mean,
reminder to have you, Jason, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you fit into government.
Thank you. Yeah, my name's Jason Pinard. I'm a financial director for the Agency Administration AOA Financial Services Division, and one of our clients would be Buildings and General Services. So, and I also happen to have Property Management Fund as one of my programs in my portfolio. So, the only thing I would add to what Jennifer said was that when she spoke about the debt and when it started. It was in fiscal year 2004 that it began, not fiscal year 2012. And so we started accumulating that debt in 2004, and it stopped in 2017 when we started charging a surcharge on all of the leases that the property management services. So going forward, we feel very confident that the debt has been mitigated and won't continue to increase going forward. So if we were to get this money, we can assure you that we won't be coming back in the situation again.
Okay. Committee, thus far, questions for either the commissioner or Jason? I don't see any hands. Next person on my witness list is Representative James Harrison.
I got about 30 questions for him.
Well, that's good, because we got to fill out this hour. This is an hour's worth of testimony here, so we're going to learn all about Jim. Welcome to Senate Institutions.
Good afternoon. For the record, Representative Jim Harrison, a member of House Appropriations Committee. Good to see you all. Even Senator Mazza, who I've had the lovely experience of just about 30 years of.
He was my boss for 30 years. Retail grocers.
Yeah, and in the interest of full disclosure, Senator Mazza reluctantly paid dues every year to our organization, which helped support my family. So thank you, Senator Mazza. And we had to name him Grocer of the Year, I think, 10 times to make sure he stayed a member. But
also had to let him do the bagging competition, right?
Anyhow, I'm pleased to be here. I think Commissioner Fitch and Jason outlined the issue pretty clearly. This proposal came into House Appropriations along with several others in the interest of paying down some of our, so to speak, unfunded liabilities. And that's what this is. It's a deficit in the fund with no plan to pay it back. Now, having said that, we were not as generous as the administration. We ended up, which will be voted on this afternoon, in the Budget Adjustment Act, we put aside $5 million instead of the full 10. Would some of us have preferred the full 10? Yes, get it done with and over with. But the challenge I think our committee was facing was balancing a number of different things, including last week trying to put aside another $50 million for the unfunded liability on the pension, which is certainly very, very important to the state and to all of us. So be that as it may, we did put $5 million in, which I think will help. The Senate is free to obviously come up with a different plan. And maybe the commissioner will be more successful than in the House version. I will make note that the House Institutions Committee did support the pay down of the deficit in the fund. They were agnostic of whether it was done this year or the next fiscal year. We chose to at least start it with the current fiscal year. We also had the treasurer in to speak to us. She supported paying down the deficit in the fund, as well as some other initiatives that the administration proposed on bonding. it's hard to measure, and as much as we tried to pin her down, it's hard to measure the individual moves as to, does that mean we go from AA to AAA or what have you? But in a very small way, each of them help. So, and show that the state is serious about, paying its obligations and moving forward. So, Jason outlined the numbers. It's just under $10 million for that, so to speak, structural deficit in the fund that there's no plan to pay it down. I think we made a significant contribution to that. You're welcome to do more if you can.
Jim, how long have you been a legislator now?
Are you suggesting it's been too long, or?
No, I'll let the citizens of your district decide that, but
He's an improvement over who he replaced, sent Job off and we got Jim.
Yeah, I'll tell Joe you said that. It's I was appointed in 2017, so I'm coming up to my 5th anniversary later this spring.
and have you served on appropriations the entire time?
No. I think my leadership knows better than to put me there too long. No, I joined appropriations at the beginning of this biennium. Before that, I was in House Government Operations.
Okay. Part of our conversations in these first couple of weeks are to try to give not only ourselves, but anybody who's watching on YouTube, a really basic understanding of the interplay between the various committees. And you're serving on a committee right now that has a lot of interplay with the capital bill once it's finally gotten through each institution's committee. I'm just wondering if you can give an appropriations 101 on what happens when the capital bill comes before your committee.
Well, if I recall from last year, we did not make any adjustments to the capital bill. We have a lot of trust and confidence in our institutions committee and in the House side anyhow. And it fit into the overall budget scheme. As you can appreciate, just like you do in the capital bill, there are always more programs and needs than you have money for. So you take whatever that target number is, whether it be 50 million, 70 million, 100 million, and you try to prioritize the best you can. Obviously, it was a little different last year with the influx of federal funds, but and this year as well. But the capital bill needs to, because of its spending, needs to be put into the whole context of what we're spending state funds on.
So it must only be the Senate Appropriations Committee then that makes changes to what we do in our institutions.
I'm not going to comment on that. We need to work with Senate Appropriations. I'm sure they have their reasons for making changes.
Yeah. Committee questions. General conversation. Jokes about Jim or anybody else?
I'm waiting for the 30 questions from Senator Mazza.
So am I, actually.
We don't have that much time today. We could reschedule.
Anybody else want to talk about the property management fund? I know it's a thrilling topic of discussion.
It was explained well.
I will say, Commissioner, no doubt we will see you back in again. I haven't looked at tomorrow's schedule yet, so I don't know if you're back on tomorrow, but we appreciate you coming back, and we're going to take each one of these little pieces of the capital bill and have conversations as we go. So for viewers in general, you may see familiar faces from time to time. Thanks all for coming, and we're going to have a brief committee conversation with my committee assistant, figure out who's up next.
Great. Well, thank you for allowing me to join you. It's truly an honor to be before the Senate Committee of Institutions. Thank you.
You behaved well. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Harrison. We'll see you again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye now. Alex, how are we doing schedule-wise? I know we have the Department of Corrections coming up next, and I don't know if anybody's yet available.
I am moving them up right now. I'm talking to Rachel, and it looks like they could join us at 2:05.
Okay, committee, today was planned to be rather short because I was worried about losing two committee members at the same time. One of them has come back, and we're going to lose Senator Mazza shortly, as I understand it. So why don't we take a quick break and we'll come back at 2:05 and see how things are.
I'm going to take us off the live stream for now.
Very good.